Good morning, everyone. This is the Vermont House Committee on Commerce and Economic Development. It is Friday, May 22nd, 2026 at 11:15 in the morning. We're back to our discussions on S71. We have a draft 5.1 with our legislative council. Sable, good morning, Rick.
Good morning.
Coming in. Your day's been quiet so far.
Actually, yeah, it was. Surprisingly.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
Here.
Okay, so Rick Sagel with the Office of Legislative Counsel. I'll go ahead and share the draft 5.1 that was emailed to the committee last night. There have been edits, grammatical edits by the drafting operations team. So you'll notice a few things that are not exactly that you saw in the email last night, but it still is 5.1 because nothing of substance has changed from last night. Okay, so I'll just go in order of the changes, chronological order of the changes. The first change is on page 2, biometric data. The previous definition was characteristics that allow or confirm the unique identification of the consumer. The request from the committee was to more replicate. I think this is Connecticut. I don't hold me to it, but I do know that the committee wanted the language in yellow that are used to identify a specific consumer, including.
Yeah, just so people had asked for the ramifications of the change and I didn't know them at the time. And so just want to bring to the table that this was actually a loophole that was kind of as part of the Illinois BIPA. And then as a result, Oregon and other states have changed it to what we had in Kids Code, which was the allows or confirms to confirm identity. Because basically how we have it now is that somebody could say that because they are collecting biometric data, but it is not used to confirm an identity, like a specific consumer, then it is not sensitive data, and therefore not regulated as sensitive data. So I just want to, I guess, bring that up for the committee. Because right now, the only way the biometric data would be considered sensitive is if it was used specifically to identify a consumer. So if entities are not using, for instance, iris scans, fingerprints, gait, those other identifying things to confirm an identity, then it is not sensitive.
Used to identify or combined with other data? I mean, is this like because the word allow was not clear, is there a way to clarify it?
I mean, I think it was allow or confirm. So they're either confirming the identity or it could be used. It could be basically used to identify a consumer because these are all identifying unique things that map to a specific person.
Right, but I guess my point is when you combine it with the information, you're using it for something. You could be using it for anything, right? Anytime you tie it to other data that you have, you're combining it. And that's really the issue. Isn't it?
I mean, I guess the issue is they have unique physiological, biological information that they may or not be confirming an identity with. They're holding that information. They could be selling your retina scans, but not using it to identify you, for instance.
Sorry, I still don't understand impact of.
So we're saying biometric data that is used to identify a specific
Right.
person.
Yeah.
So the loophole there that we covered in Kids Code is that biometric data would only be considered sensitive if it was collected and used or processed to identify a specific consumer. So if somebody's collecting that information, like that poop app from the video I sent the other day, and they're not using it to confirm your identity, but like they are holding that information, the fact that they're just using it for processing in other ways other than confirming your identity means it's not sensitive data.
Funny.
What if we were to put used to identify characteristics of a specific consumer.
Striking out are used to identify. Is that the request?
I was thinking adding identify characteristics,
Oh.
because that kind of takes it out of the realm of just using it for identification. Because whether you're using it for identity verification or not, now it's characteristic.
I guess the allow more or less says that could be used to identify a specific consumer is essentially what the allow takes out, right? Right.
It's very technical. And I don't feel comfortable saying which, it's just a very technical definition, not legally technical technology too. And I just don't know enough to tell you. I mean, I assume that allow or confirm was there to be more protective of that data, but I just don't know how it's used in the,
Yeah, I just wanted to bring it up that we made a change to this technical language, not knowing the ramifications, and I just want to share the ramifications of
that's fair.
what the experts are saying we did.
And what was the rationale for changing it again, other than there was a request? Can't
There
remember.
was a request that allow was not clear. What does allow mean?
Yeah, I guess I didn't understand why that wasn't clear to begin with.
But if maybe just propose putting in that could be used
I'm
to
gonna,
identify a specific consumer.
yeah, sure.
You just propose that, does that seem like?
I was just like, that was maybe I was wondering if that was like that would allow provided. So yeah, if that's a possible option, then yeah.
That's gonna open it up quite a bit. From going that is used to could be used. It's just, again, your choice. That's gonna open up that definition quite a bit. That any of that data that is or could be used to identify a consumer would be sensitive data, basically, right? Which that's what you want to do, that's fine, but I think that is opening up what biometric data is or could be.
Yeah, I guess the point is the I through 6 are unique to individual people. They're not, that does not include, which is like photos.
Why would they gather all of that stuff? What would the other purpose be if it's not to identify? So,
To sell it.
but then what?
I mean,
Somebody else turns around and utilizes it to identify someone?
Still having trouble understanding what the objection was to allow. I'm reading the memo and suggestion is it's inherently broad. But I don't, trying to understand what definitions sometimes are pretty broad. If people intend it to be so, I'm trying trouble how figuring out what the harm was in including that term allowed. And I'm with Rick, technically, I don't totally understand mechanics of what we're talking about. I'm so coming from a point of view, why are we doing this? Why are we not allowing the word allow? And if I had a better idea, I think that counts.
So just to back out, if it's not biometric data, it's personal data, or
It could be, right?
the biometric data is sensitive data.
Right.
That's the one.
Okay, and then if the sentence stops at characteristics, is that clear?
Without specifying a specific consumer, that even broadens it much more to anybody,
To any of that data.
any person, any individual in the world, right? No longer a Vermonter, no longer a American citizen, it would be anybody.
So we don't have the ability to have laws around some of that. Would be too.
Well, no, so you can do whatever, right? I guess my point is just that I think it would help know what you all want to do. Is this, so this data is important, right, to you all? So do you want to allow businesses to sell this data is my first question. That's maybe, let's think of it that way, instead of just thinking about the language, like, what do you want to do with this data? Obviously, apps use it, right? To get into your phone, to get into your whatever, log into your bank account. So that's, I think, okay that they do that. But then what should they do with that data? It is sensitive data, right?
Right.
But maybe you take, maybe this is extra. I don't know. Maybe you treat this data differently. It's sensitive data. It's your bill. You can do.
I thought that we treat it like sensitive data. That was,
Yeah, I don't have any ranking of types of sensitive.
so
Okay.
I'm happy there.
Okay.
But I agree, Rick, I feel good about us thinking of it that way. What do we want to do with it as a way to help us figure out how we arrange a subordinate clause or whatever we're looking at? Because it just, because we have a few more to go and sort of cognizant of being comfortable with what we're doing and then maybe worrying about comfortable with how we're saying it. But I'm not sure I'm going to be able to get allow, could be, are all the way squared away in the time we have.
I think I just thought of an example. So for instance, like my ring, my watch, they're tracking my phone being on me is tracking how fast I walk, where I'm walking, whether what my heart rate is, what my blood oxygen is, all of the, like, you name it, there's a bunch of identifiers that these devices are tracking on me. These identifiers are not, these like biometric pieces of data are being put into health apps and things like that, but they are not being used to identify me as an individual. So right now, as we have it, these things tracking me, if they're not using that data to confirm my, identify me like as my identity, then those pieces of health data that are being tracked on me they're not sensitive in the current way that we have.
That's helpful.
Yeah, sorry, I'm trying to plug my brain to think of.
Right, and they might be using them for research or to aggregate.
Yeah, and we exempt the things like research and things like that, but my iPhone health app, my fitness tracker, my, whatever, my Aura app, my Apple Watch app, right now, that's not sensitive. If we did this, none of that tracking is sensitive.
Okay.
Your blood sugar. Yeah.
I get that.
No, I'm just like
I completely
adding
get
an
that.
example, yeah.
But I mean, it begs the question, or makes me choice.
Yeah, no, we give
It's a choice.
consent on, I'm saying this wouldn't be treated
No, I know.
as sensitive at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I beg to differ on the choice, right? Like I have one of these and I almost didn't stick with the program when it switched over to Google, because Google wanted access to all my data and there was no way for me to opt out and still have access to all of the features of it. And Google has access to my email and to my search and to this and to, like, how many other pieces do they need to have insight into what I do and who I am and what I value? And I
But it is a choice.
should, sure, I could have a little pedometer, absolutely, that isn't connected to anything.
I mean, that's,
But wouldn't it be great if I could have something like this and have a choice for them not to like connect it to all this other data? Like,
let me see.
that's the world I'd like to live in.
Check.
Michael, I actually think if it's okay. I think I guess that what I'm expressing is I do want us to treat these as sensitive data so that people have consent options. Otherwise, otherwise it's personal data and we don't tie those consent options. to that. Yeah.
That was when I was gonna make,
Yeah.
Jonathan was asking, why is this important kind of thing? For me, it's important because later on in Rick's draft, there's some very clear, elegant language that talks about what kind of consent a consumer has around sensitive data. So, I'm coming from, that's the goal that I had, of allowing a consumer to have an opt-in right for the use of sensitive
The
data.
idea of getting us to the spot where it's sensitive data makes sense. And that's, I think,
They're existing.
like the room wants. And so it's
And right now, I'm thinking that I'm not,
Genetic data and kids would both.
I don't know why we changed from allow and
Or confirm.
Collecting is
confirm.
minimization piece.
And but I understand one is more protective than the other. So as opposed to consent and the ability of the consumer to opt in, I'd go with the more protective. Unless I understand, what the difference is and why that is okay. And I don't know.
Yeah, it's hard.
Could it be collected or used to confirm? Biometric data that is collected or used to confirm. That's super clear. There's no question on what allow means. We have a definition for collected.
So where would you put the collected? Where would you start it?
That are collected or used to confirm.
A specific consumer? So,
Collected on or used to confirm.
so it would read biometric data means data generated from the technological processing of an individual's unique biological, physical, or physiological characteristics that are collected to confirm,
Are collected or used to confirm.
collected or used to confirm.
Tell me if that makes sense.
Just down first.
EDM wondering, so before we had allow or confirm the unique identification of the consumer and we have that are used to identify, so maybe it's collect or used to identify a specific consumer. Maybe or something, just to like align it with the other one.
Or used to identify a specific consumer.
Yeah.
And what this will do
So
is
you're sure-
allow people to opt out because it will be sensitive data. Opt in, opt in,
Does it allow them to opt out from the processing? That's it.
I don't know.
Because we separated collect and processing.
Get there.
Okay, I'm just saying.
I don't remember what I did. That are collected or used. So we're just adding two words. We're adding that are collected or used to identify a specific consumer.
But collected would still be to identify. I'm saying collected on or used to identify.
Collected on.
Yes, technically, your R would be an or.
Collected that are collected on or are used to identify. I'll figure out the grammar, but that's
I
what,
don't
that's
think
the
there's
idea.
a question about what that means anymore.
Yes, collected is defined, so, okay. Moving on. Speaking of collect, I realized that we use collect in the bill, but we also use collected and collection. So I think the intent of the bill is that when you say the word collection, you still want to go back to that root word to collect, right? What that word means. So adding in that collection means the same thing. These lines 8 and 9, this was in draft 3.3, where Priestley can mention why it was added back if you'd like. It was a request from industry, I believe.
Yeah.
For what it does not include. Any questions about that? Okay. On page 4, consumer health data. This is one that was in Connecticut 2025, the adding or status that was not in draft 4.2. So adding that to align with the Connecticut definition, and I think 3.3 also had or status. I forgot to add it back. Any questions about that? Okay, page 6. This is the definition of de-identified data. The committee decided to remove or household from de-identified data. So it previously read at the very end, individual was there, but it also said, get it right, individual or household. So striking or household. Okay, so also on page 6, 20 is deleted because that was a definition of financial institution, which is a Gramlich-Bliley. You'll see why in the exemptions, why that definition was removed. We no longer use the term financial institution. Okay, moving on to page 7, no changes.
Oh, I see.
Page 8, 33 previously was, well, 34, non-public personal information, which is another Gramlich-Bliley. Cross-reference, that exception has been amended, so we're moving that term because it's no longer used in the bill. I will show you why here in just a little bit. Page 9, personal data. This is another in a household. So individuals was there, but striking out the end of that line, which was in a household. Keep going unless I hear otherwise. On page 10, no changes. Page 11, this, oh, I almost skipped right by it. Publicly available information. No change to the introductory, what it means. My understanding that the committee was okay with that introductory language, what it means. Okay, what it does not include, no change to biometric data, no change to information that is collated and combined to create the consumer profile. So I moved 3. 3 was 4 because 3 was an inference from 2 or 3. Because you wanted to remove the inference from the sale, I moved up the inference to number 3, which now is just an inference of 2. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, 4 was previously information that is made available for sale. So that remains, however, it is narrowed by solely for the purposes set forth in subdivisions 2415D A1, A2, and A4, and that is the consumer personal data rights. A1 is knowing whether they process your data. Have it memorized, I think, but I want to make sure I get it right. The consumer has the right to know if you're whether or not they're processing your data. 2 is correcting inaccuracies in your personal data. And 4 is obtaining a copy of your data from the controller. So if a controller sells your data, your information, that is typically publicly available information, except when it's used to confirm whether or not they process it, correct inaccuracies, and obtain a copy of your data. I think I said that right. I know it's written right, but I don't know if I worded it right.
Yeah, that problem.
Can you say that one more time?
So let me make it this way. If a controller sells your data, you cannot delete that data, right? Just because they're selling it. But what you can do is you can get a copy of it. You can request it be fixed inaccuracies, and you can know that they're processing it. Otherwise, you can't. Anything else, if it's for sale only, you cannot delete it. You cannot opt out of target advertising, the sale, or profiling. So just 1, 2, and 4. If it's made available for sale.
Publicly available.
Right. Right. Well, any information that is made available for sale, because I want to make sure we're using the right words here.
because it's not, yeah. It's not publicly available information.
because they're selling it. Yeah, however it is in these three instances. Yep.
Yeah, so just a ramification of the trying to understand this. So from yesterday when we let me try to explain this. There are certain brokers that are selling information or people processing information that is so like different data sets that are the inputs into their systems are information that was for sale. Like they'll buy records from other entities, basically, and then resell those and things like that, or host them to like do different stuff with it. So basically we're saying that those because that specifically when we're talking about deletion is now not is counted as public information for the deletion piece. If somebody is holding records that were sold to them, that data is considered public information. Can be said that it is all the information that was bought is now public information and therefore not eligible to be deleted.
But is it possible that that would be caught in one of the other exceptions to PAI?
If
That-
it's not being the only other ones, I think that are like the ones that are being combined. So it's not, say it's a straight file that's like information that wasn't combined with anything else. They could say that was a purchased file and therefore a public file.
I think this accurately reflects the fact that but I had a quick, when it says information that is made available for sale, does the information that we're talking back relate back to publicly available? In other words, publicly available information, sub A talks about, you get it from a government database or it's made available by the consumer. Is that the information that we're talking about in sub 4?
In the information.
That's what I was concerned about.
Yep.
Because what I was thinking about, the concern about deleting and things like that, I was sort of thinking about the issue of that's come up, a criminal wants to delete their record of a crime or whatever. And so in effect is indirectly making that law enforcement record unavailable in any sort of.
No, you can't delete law enforcement records.
No, I
Yeah.
understand. But if it's a record, if it isn't a law enforcement record, that puts a different spin on it to me because it's just any information, I guess. And I had always thought about that as because justification for why the original sub 3 or whatever 4 was that it would enable bad guys to delete information that was necessary to figure out whether they're a criminal or did bad stuff. So I'm actually not comfortable with just the broad information. Well, or maybe I'm not. I had pause about that broad nature of the term. If it was related back to the government database, I'd fine with that, because that's what I thought we were talking. But obviously, it's not. I don't know about,
I guess I don't understand what the problem is.
because the justification for wanting to not just have sale of information as something that wasn't publicly available information.
This suddenly applies to publicly available information.
Right, but if it's not, now we're gonna get it down the rabbit hole again, because
Because if it's not publicly available, now it's personal data.
yeah, but the source is important. I mean, the validity of a government database, hey, they're not always right either, but at least there's some, to me anyway, some validity. Whereas if it's just information that someone's collected about me from wherever, and then you're selling it, that's a horse of different color. Jeez, that's awful.
Tony?
I guess an example of this, like stepping out of the data broker world for a minute with the government records is, say I go onto Zoom Info and I buy 50,000 Vermonters, worth of information as a customer list and for my business. I can say my database was from Zoom Info, which was information that was sold to me. So therefore it's publicly available information, which means I don't have to follow this law.
That was making sense.
I read it differently. I'm sorry. Yeah, I read this as like, if it is made available for sale, that specific data set makes it, not publicly available, right? If you buy it, once you receive, once you pay for the data, that's no longer information made available to me.
But the source that I got it from was publicly available. If we put it here.
Right, so you buy information that is publicly available, right, or that you're told was from those sources. That information is not being made available for sale. You bought it. So the seller, that may be the issue, right, but not the buyer. I guess I just want to make that clear.
I think it's both. I think it's the
You
input.
think it's both?
Yeah, because it was information that was made available for sale, so I can say it was public.
That is made available for sale. And so if you wanted to apply it clearly, because I don't think it's clear that it applies to the buyer and the seller. I think it's just the seller.
Okay, I think this is both.
Then I think you'd want to change that to make, or at least has been, whatever the grammar is, right? But I think right now it's not.
It's good to know that your read on it is the selling of it.
Yes. And again, maybe I could be proven wrong, but I have not researched this specific clause in depth, so.
Tony?
Maybe I'm not getting your example, but I failed to see how a Zoom database of 50,000 names be considered publicly available information. It's not a federal or state government record. I wouldn't call Zoom widely distributed media. So I'm trying to figure out how you define that as public.
This is information that's made available for sale, but we made an exception for deletion. So I'm saying, like, right now we're saying that if that information is available for sale, we give certain rights to it from Zoom Info, but not the right to be deleted from a database that I got from Zoom Info that was made available for sale. I can't ask to be deleted from that because we're making an exception for deletion.
To get to my point, which I think is related to what Monique's talking about, but maybe a little bit differently. I'm worried about making sure that the information is from a reliable database. And so I'm just scribbled there, if you insert after information described in A1 and 2. So if you go back to A1 and 2, it's government records or consumer made lawfully available. That would narrow the type of information that's subject to this exception to publicly available.
You want to think on that?
Yeah, I think so. Rep. Priestley talks about data brokers, right? This is not a data broker bill. It does affect them. You have a data broker 211 bill that would address this issue, I think, differently because data brokers are in the business of buying, selling, aggregating data, selling it, right? That's their business. Here, you're applying this to all controllers, which includes data brokers, right? So I guess you could also take it out. And I don't know if that makes it clearer to avoid this confusion. And I don't know, maybe think about that too, is if this is throwing you off so much, maybe it's not worth. I don't know. Think about-
In the parking lot and, come back to it.
I do have to be out at 12 and you do too.
30.
I thought it was 12.
30.
Let me check my calendar.
Okay.
Madam Vice Chair, and you are correct.
Oh.
It's 12:30. Okay, I got plenty of time then. Okay, so moving on. So there's no other changes to PAI. That was it, those two. Okay, page 12, no change. Page 13, no change. 14, no change. So no other changes to the definitions. The applicability, two changes. Subdivision 2 at the bottom of page 15, there was an X indicating that there was debate about the number. So the committee settled on not fewer than 3,000. That if you control or process the sensitive data of not fewer than 3,000 consumers in the previous calendar year, you would be subject to the bill. So more than 3,000, if that's confusing. Third applicability threshold is if you offered for sale in trade or commerce the personal data of not fewer than 3,000, so more than 3,000 consumers. Shall I keep going? Okay. The exemptions, a few changes to the exemptions. Go page 18, 19. Page 20. So on page 20, subdivision 13, this is Bramley-Wiley exemption. There was a request to change the previous language, which was non-public personal information that is processed by a financial institution subject to Bramley-Wiley. So replacing non-public personal information that is processed by a financial institution to data subject to. So it's still a data level exemption. The reason why non-public personal information was used is that is the data subject to Bramley-Wiley. That is the information that is regulated by Bramley-Wiley. I have not had time to fully understand data versus non-public personal information. But this is what most states do when it comes to exempting Bramley-Wiley. I believe, I'm not going to say Kids Code has a similar exemption. I think it's actually financial institution in Kids Code. So, but this is a common way to word the exemption.
So I mean, I feel like this is I'm not a Bramley-Wiley expert, and I did not know this was going to be on here. I feel like we have gone back and forth on this a bunch, and specifically when we were looking at the Delete Act, I would love to have somebody talk about the ramifications. I know you said you can't necessarily talk about the ramifications of this, but I thought that. I guess I would love maybe if this is Jamie's changed hear from Jamie, but wondering how much this opens up things because we were very much specifically trying to do the banks and insurance and that kind of stuff and when we created this, and I'm curious if this opens this up to car dealers and payday lenders, credits, those all the ones we were concerned about in the Delete Act.
Will you testify later?
Sure.
You want to answer that? You have a quick answer?
I'm happy to try now if you want me to come back.
Sure, I can try now.
The previous way the language was worked, sorry, Jamie Fion on behalf of American Insurance Association on this issue, also the Consumer Data Industry Association. Previous language, which read non-public personal information that is processed by a financial institution subject to is part data but not complete. It's limited because it's only applied to those financial institutions, not, for example, companies that process on behalf of financial institutions. So absent having the data applied, that GLBA data housed by others would then be subject to this, including deletion mechanism, which creates the conflict that we discussed before about GLBA, et cetera, et cetera. So as a reminder, GLBA comes with significant privacy protections and safeguards in place, including, it all hinges on the financial institution, which is held responsible, but they choose the service provider. The safeguards go with the data to the service provider. And this is both at federal and state level regulation, and there are restrictions on using it beyond what is shared by the financial institution to the provider.
If we do, I would love some, this exemption in particular was part of what we worked with, Jamie and Chris and Maria Royal and others to do. We had it very specifically tailored after having Maria Royal come up with a chart of all of the state and federal laws that governs agreements broadly for credit and stuff in order to hone and create a very specific exemption that didn't open up too broadly beyond what we were trying to get as highly regulated spaces and respected that and for state and federal. And this, I feel like, again, not an expert in this space. So, but I feel like I have been told in the past that essentially the things that make data qualify as Graham Leach Bliley is having financial information mixed with social security numbers. I am really curious how broad this opens up things as far as, like I said, car dealers, payday lenders, school, loan entities, entities that go after bad, like debt collection, and or if this does open up any type of like brokered information as well, since we're not tying it to very specific non-public information that the banks and institutions that we trust and that we crafted this original one with. Yeah, I guess we're blowing this up and I feel like
So Jamie, you said it was about third parties,
Non-affiliated third parties.
non-affiliated third parties. So I wonder if there's another way and we can talk about this offline. That might.
Always happen to talk. I mean, as Mr. Siegel alluded to, I don't necessarily want to conflate entity level versus data level conversation because this is separate. This is still only data. And every state that has a comprehensive privacy law has a GLBA exemption in some form, recognizing the safeguards that are in place to either entity or data or a combination of both, including Connecticut in 2025, which, similar to what you're doing here, separated data from entity. But the data looks exactly like this, I think, in Connecticut.
Yes.
Yes, Mike.
So this is what 2025 looks like.
Yeah.
And, I'm gonna say it again.
Is this gonna get you to?
It's no, absolutely not.
Just curious.
Sorry, I didn't mean to be snotty when I said that. I know it's but it gets back to like the whole like Overton window of like pushing it way back over to the other side. And that's fine. I mean, we should keep it at the data level. And I understand that.
Which is this language here.
Correct.
we have-
But what we're, what
Oh, okay. Mid-sentence.
because I gave up.
Can we put the parking lot?
Oh, I just have a question for Jamie. Did you say non-affiliated or affiliated?
Affiliate.
How much Bliley allows sharing with non-affiliated third parties to process for insurance.
Is that what this is opening up?
say it's open up.
Well, that's what you're trying to get exempted, I guess.
Data that is privileged violent data. That is. So changes on a financial institution. Files sharing to a non-third, with non-affiliated third parties for purposes of financial activities for, servicing the policies, et cetera, with restrictions on use for other purposes. And again, as a reminder, Vermont has an opt-in standard. And I would add that among the states that we've discussed or referenced, no state has limited the data that is subject to those questions.
So if we're trying to expand the pool of this, is a non-affiliated third party just I guess, could that be a data broker, a marketing firm, tech vendor, retailer, or any other institution that it shares customer data with?
For example, that would be used to identify an individual or to identify fraud or to provide information related to a loan or insurance policy.
So it wouldn't include marketing company, tech vendors, retailers, data brokers.
It's not. There are limited uses for marketing, joint arrangements between the financial institution and regulation speaks to, but it isn't allowed for use beyond financial activity.
For like hybrid entities and things like car dealerships, can the information be used between the kind of portions of the business, like the selling of the car versus like the financing of the car?
That's an area that I'm not too familiar with the car dealers. If they're affiliated companies, one of them is identified or defined as a financial institution. I guess it is probably.
Urban, then Mike.
So Jamie, I think core of your issue is that which in 4.2, you just said financial institutions, it did not include affiliates, and it didn't cover service providers of the financial institution. And those service providers and affiliates are subject to at least state rule.
And federal.
So I think it may be the difficulty that folks are having with the substitute definition. I mean, I understand the concern that the affiliates and the service providers are subject to a privacy rule, and you need to opt in. But by defining it as data, irrespective of whether it's data related to the financial institution or the affiliate or service provider, I think that's what the concerns are. And I'm hearing.
Yep, I remember the financial institution that is controlling the data. And the protections carried forward with the data, regardless of who touches it.
First,
I'm thinking, yeah, I'm done for. I'm slow thinking.
that's it. I mean, if the concern is that this is opening up to payday loaners, we could ban them in the state of, wait, never mind. Or the car loans, we could ban the car loans from having this information, and then poor people can't get loans, which is great for us. This is the problem. I know, well, because I get like super frustrated and again, I point out that, we're supposed to be within the confines of as passed in 2025. This is 2025. And we're trying to go beyond that. So if we want to go beyond 2025 away from the original conversation that we had, which it's really unfair for folks that are struggling with this to be in here because it's frustrating as hell.
I'm just trying to understand what
No, I get it, but, and you know, like, with, you know, the comment of like payday loaners on this one, Vermont doesn't have payday loans. Right, and if somebody wants to go to New Hampshire or Massachusetts to get a payday loan,
Payday loans are legal in Vermont.
oh, they are? Oh, well, we don't have any.
They're
payday
regular.
loans. We don't have any in the state of Vermont that I know of. But maybe,
They're not within the state. They're legal in the state. Want to license themselves. They have chosen not to license. Cash advance.
I think we're ready.
Are we gonna come back to this with Maria?
Yeah, we're
Okay.
parking lot in this and the previous item. Just,
I'm just gonna tell you that our days are numbered. Really numbered. And I think next week is it, and if you start looking at how we move this thing.
Yeah.
Because you're not gonna get rule suspension unless you get everybody on board. So. If we don't pass this out today, then it's dead.
Also, it helps to alleviate a point that many have made here. We have a runway of 18 months on this before anything goes into effect. So I feel like there's this terror that we're going to put something in here and then some evil corporation or consumer or whatever is going to try and take advantage of this. And we're trying to figure out and anticipate every single possibility. And it's a losing battle. We can't. We even our combined brains of 11 people, it is impossible for us to reach that level of completeness. And I think we need to get something out there. Even if it's flawed, we've got 18 months to work through it. But I do not want to have to start over on this next year, assuming I'm here.
Definitely the same one.
So the next change is on page 25, which is the consumer rights section of the bill. There is a request for the agent ability of a consumer to not just use number 5, which is opting out of the processing of personal data, but also 3, the deletion of your data. So a consumer would be able to authorize an agent to do that. Those 2.
They can't. Not 4.
Not 4.
And can you just briefly say why obtaining a copy is not something that you think a person would or someone do for them? I thought that we might just take all the things that you can do it yourself, you can ask them to do it on your behalf. So I'd be happy, I'd be comfortable with a broader swath there, but I don't need it to be that way.
This was my, I think, feeling from the committee, but again, it's a policy choice.
Something doesn't need to show.
Yeah, I think that was,
Okay.
it should be off.
The entire subsection.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're going to stop here. If you want to get any semblance of lunch. Before we do that, Chair Conlon's in to share with us the Education Committee's amendments to S 313 CEGO. We may take that up today. Gone through all of the committees it needs to go through. We can get ahead of the curve. Thank you, Rick.
Yep.
Join us.
Do you have my 45-minute slide deck loaded?
Yeah, you go right.
Actually, we lowered the hour. Cut it down.
Okay, 313, the CTE bill.
Trying to get the Peter go ahead and we'll, once it's posted, we all can look at it, but.
Okay.
Much to do, so.
Peter Conlon, House Education. So our amendment to 313 is very small, however, somewhat substantive. Really, the intent language and the findings that you all received, we didn't make any changes to. The tasks that you created for the Agency of Education, which they then came in and testified that they're enthusiastic about taking on, has essentially remained unchanged, except in a couple of small instances. One, it talked about sort of where you intervene if there's a dispute. We changed early state to early stage intervention. I don't know if that was a typo or a word choice or whatever.
Like a typo.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, all right,
Thank you.
sure. So that's actually is a instance of amendment. And then the other is to move from the task force, having the AOE make recommendations about how we now deal with students in the adult diploma program who do not, at least according to the rules as interpreted by AOE, do not have access to secondary CTE. And we moved that up there because the other big thing that we did is we took out the task force. And the reasoning for that is because we have 955 in its final result, if it makes it across the finish line, calls out CTE and sort of its future and how it's funded and how it's incorporated in many different places. And we didn't want to sort of muddy the waters with yet another group working on it. And much of what they were being asked, we also were somewhat, felt it was somewhat ambitious, the timing for the deep questions that were being asked. So for those reasons, we pulled that, but really kept everything else, and everything, the work you folks all did is, I think it'd be really helpful in the sense that it clarifies a lot of things, and also asks for a lot of information from the AOE that's going to be really important going forward.
Questions for Chair Conlon?
Thank you. The individuals who, with the removal of the task force, it's just an AOE that's completing the work.
We didn't give them, the only task that was in the list of task force asks that we moved up to the AOE was how to deal with the students who were previously high school completion and moving into adult diploma.
If you remember, we had a number of things that we asked them to look at.
Yes.
And this is just another piece of that.
Got it. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. And I understand that it's in 955. And I don't know how the process is for legislatively speaking. Is there a way to, like, if it's not in there, we can refer to this, or, because I don't know. Just in case 955, some awful things happen or something and it gets removed.
I would say that the work that is required of the AOE in this is probably going to provide a mountain of information that, then I think next year you can say, do we need a task force to deal with the governance issue? But, I think governance is going to be, if 955 fails for whatever reason, CTE governance is always going to be a big topic. But, yeah, I would say from a procedural point of view, it'd be pretty challenging.
Okay, I just want to make sure that it's.
In the limited amount of time we have left,
I would say,
which I hope is limited.
I hope you're right, but I would say somehow, some way, there's got to be something that happens this year. At some point, I'm assuming.
Yeah, that's, so, I take it, the concept of the task force deal with post secondary, is that, I don't want, that the task force would be removed, but it's taken up somewhere else. These issues are taken up somewhere else in the bill.
We only removed the task force, and we only moved the one task force duty of dealing with the adult diploma program and secondary students to the AOE to make recommendations.
Okay, so it's
That's it.
instead of the task force, it's AOE making recommendations.
Yes.
Okay.
Any other questions? Emily?
Wait, I'm just trying to find, so with that, with AOE, is that also going, that's gonna be in collaboration with Backfed
Oh, yeah.
and all that?
I think it says that in
In there,
the bill.
yeah.
Anything else? Okay. Good. Ready to vote? So all in favor of finding the House Education Committee amendment to S 313 favorable, raise your hand. All opposed? Carried. Thank you, Peter.
Thank you all very much for your work. That was great.
So again, I don't know if this will come up today or not. Quite possibly could, so. See what happens. So I think we're on the floor again. And so when we finish that round, let's come back here. Is Rick available this afternoon? Okay, so we'll book Rick. 12:30, we have committee conference in Senate Economic Development on 6:39. And so it's lunchtime. Those of you who are still might be hungry after.
Oh, let's go.
Offline.